Leftism has been the most dynamic religion in the world for the last 100 years. More so than Christianity, more than Islam, certainly more than Judaism, which is my religion. And if you don't know leftism, you don't know what people are learning.
Dennis Prager writes a syndicated column, hosts a radio show carried nationally by 120 stations, and is a prolific author. On his radio program, he devotes serious attention not only to current political contentions, but also to human nature, including the differences between men and women, and to the overarching problem of human nature, which is happiness. So sober, wise, and practical is his treatment of these subjects that someone ought to call him the Aristotle of the airwaves, which I hereby do. He has written books on anti-Semitism, Judaism, happiness, among many other things. His latest and most political is called Still the Best Hope: Why the World Needs American Values to Triumph, published in 2012 by Broadside Books and now reissued in paperback with a new preface. Dennis, welcome to the American Mind.
Charles, I'm honored.
Let me begin by asking you about Prager University, the online educational service that you have recently founded. Why did you feel the need to go into the university business?
Because the universities have left the university business and have entered the indoctrination business. Because the truth of the matter is, and it's a tragedy, and I attended an Ivy League graduate school and I taught at college, so I'm rather well aware of what goes on.
You're not innocent.
I'm not innocent, but I'm not guilty either. And the prevailing attitude of the university is an abandonment of its traditional liberal arts role and has now become essentially an indoctrination seminary. There are Christian seminaries and there are left-wing seminaries. The Christian seminaries' stated and admitted purpose is to produce a committed Christian. The purpose of most universities today is to produce a committed leftist. And every piece of data and every anecdote sustains that charge.
Was that true, by the way, when you were in
college
and graduate school?
Yes, it was, believe it or not, yep. In fact, I have a piece out there among my many columns, how I found God at Columbia, which is, by the way, true.
Where did you go to school and what did you study?
Undergraduate, I went to, in the U.S. and England, Brooklyn College in the U.S., University of Leeds in England. I studied history and Middle Eastern studies, but my emphasis was on communist affairs, so I was at the Russian Institute at the Columbia School of International Affairs, and I studied under Brzezinski.
Aha.
So
you learned Russian?
I learned Russian, yes.
Did you learn Arabic as well?
I learned Arabic, Hebrew, Russian, yep. And I went to all of these countries a number of times. And it's very interesting because I thought that when the Cold War ended, I thought, wow, it's a good thing I have work in another area, because who needs a communist affairs specialist with the end of most communism? But the truth is, it was the best thing I could have majored in, because leftism has been the most dynamic religion in the world for the last 100 years. More so than Christianity, more than Islam, certainly more than Judaism, which is my religion. And if you don't know leftism, you don't know what people are learning. Let me just say one more word, because I got so sidetracked from your question on Prager University. It's an antidote. We are trying to take some of the finest minds in the world, give them 5 minutes, and beautifully produce it with sparing really no expense. We're a 501c3. And we raise a good sum of money each year to produce these 5-minute videos that are antidotes to the intellectual and moral decline of the university.
And these are, so this is online?
Online, it's free to users, and many are in a number of languages. It's prageruniversity.com.
Now, were you a liberal when you were in graduate school?
No, but I was anti-communist, and that, I was pro-God and anti-communist. And I don't mean pro-God, he's a good guy.
Right.
Pro the necessity, the moral necessity of God. I have my own emotional problems with God. So I wanted to make clear what pro-God means. Without God, we're doomed. And I don't mean because we'll be punished. It's just, moral chaos will ensue. And so I knew that by and large, and I knew I hated communism because the most powerful conviction in my life is that we must fight evil. In fact, as I said on my radio show today, the right fights evil and the left fights the right.
Now, if you weren't a liberal, what were you?
I wasn't. I was more theologically preoccupied than politically preoccupied. So I would say that I didn't realize, and this was the final straw which made me a Republican, because after all, if you're a Jewish intellectual in New York, you know, in your birth certificate it says Democrat. It's just part of the thing, you know. And so I was a Democrat. I voted Democrat through Jimmy Carter. And then one line, which proves to me why 5 minutes can change your mind, one line did it all for me, that the government is not the solution to our problems, it is the problem. And then I realized, wow, that's right. That's true morally, it is true. Genocides are committed by big governments. And so what I cared most about evil, that was a big government problem. And then the other thing I care most about, liberty, that's a big government problem. And then everything became clear.
Were you surprised how the Brzezinski-Carter foreign policy deteriorated?
No, no, that's a great question. I'll never forget, I was giving my master's thesis to Brzezinski, and there were about eight of us around the table. You know, it was the Seminar on Advanced Communist Problems, or some highfalutin title like that. And I was giving my thesis, and I said, I used the word totalitarian in describing the Soviet Union. And he said, Mr. Prager, we try not to use that word in our seminar. We're not certain if the Soviet Union fits the definition of totalitarian. Now, I had a lot of chutzpah even at that age, but not as much as I had later. But I remember thinking what I should have said, but it might not have been in place, and that was, well, the Soviet citizen knows whether it's totalitarian. We may not here in New York City, but they do there.
But didn't Brzezinski and Huntington,
That's what blew my mind.
Originate
the
the
guy
use of
came
the term?
from Poland, exactly, and used the term. I was stunned.
And so, did you have heroes then, political heroes or intellectual heroes at that point?
That's it's a question I've mulled over. I didn't have, I had personal people in my life whom I looked up to. Macro figures, there weren't any, and I don't say this with any regret, but I didn't really. The only one, and this will lower me in your esteem, but well, it'll lower me in some parts of your esteem, but you'll realize how honest I am. The one film / TV figure that was a hero to me was the character Brett Maverick. That James Garner played.
Right, James Garner, yeah.
Because he did two things, and it absolutely was life-shaping for me. He fought evil and did it with aplomb. He never got exacerbated, frustrated, never yelled, but he fought evil with a good demeanor. And I have tried to do that.
And have you acquired heroes since?
Oh, good question. The heroes that I believe in are not well known. The person who who tries to smuggle in something into North Korea is a hero. I have a saying that I often use. The significant are rarely famous, and the famous are rarely significant. There are a lot of heroes. I know a man who spent 8 years taking care of his Alzheimer's wife. He's a hero to me. But the heroic is rarely famous. Miley Cyrus is famous, but
yes.
she's not heroic.
That's right. Well, it's not even clear that she's famous. She's a celebrity. But that may be too fleeting
yes.
for real fame.
The Aristotle of radio doesn't see the big difference.
But do you not count Reagan or Churchill?
I love Reagan, well, Reagan and Thatcher. Okay, so right. that's fair.
Exceptions.
And by the way, John the 23rd as well. He was a very a seminal figure and a good man. So yes, these people, I'm happy to include them. Yes. And
were you surprised as an expert when the Soviet Union collapsed?
Yes, I admit it. I admit it. I'll never forget my first published article, 1970, 21 years old, or 22, depends what month it was. And National Review published an article that I wrote upon returning from Poland. I went to East Europe a lot because this was my field. And I wrote, this was the title of the article, Will Garrick Survive? Garrick was the communist leader of Poland in 1970. And I spoke about his pretty imminent collapse. He lasted another 10 years. So in a sense, I predicted the future, but not quite as I meant it.
That's right.
So I did not expect this. There was a very famous Soviet dissident work I'm sure you're familiar with. Will the Soviet Union survive until 1984? Yes. And you know, and he made that prediction. I thought, oh, give me a break. With that totalitarian structure, this is around my whole lifetime. So I was surprised.
Part of the totalitarian model, after all, was its endurance.
Yes.
I mean, authoritarianism could come and go, but
that's
totalitarianism
right. Authoritarianism does come and go.
Yes, right. But it was supposed to endure. Well, the future is hard to predict.
Well, yes. Well, except, what is it?
You know Churchill's saying on this? That
what?
The future, though imminent, is obscure.
That's a beautiful
Which
saying.
I think actually says just about everything that can be said on the question.
And the one they said about the Soviets, in the Soviet Union, the future is known, it's the past which is always changing. I love that
Exactly.
one.
That's true with the American University, too.
Please,
to come back to our beginning
That's why we
point.
started Prager University. Correct.
Thank you.